bigger the consumer base of a product, in a way, it's more likely someplace along the line, if it hasn't happened to you, it's going to happen to you. Skippy's a popular brand. It had no problem, but it's one of the faces of peanuts around the world, or at least in many, many markets. And the bigger the brand, the bigger the potential problem, even if there's not a problem.
Well, that's what I was saying, that the Skippy wasn't part of the recall, but we had far more calls on Skippy than we had on the products that were recalled. Because of the size of the business and the halo effect of, well, if a peanut's bad, your peanut butter's got to be bad. And actually, we got calls on Peter Pan and everything else. Where's my buddies from Conagra? Are you, anybody here? When Peter Pan had the recall, we got more calls than they did because initially their toll-free number line, so many people were calling that they couldn't get through. So then what did they do? They called the next peanut butter company. And no, don't laugh. If you're in a big industry where you have two major competitors and your major competitor has a recall, you better damn well be prepared, because when they can't get through on that line, or I'm sorry, there was a trust factor. They want to see if we're going to say the same thing that they heard over here. So you just have to know that even if you're in that category, be prepared. And again, even if it's as simple as the Google alerts, like a big brand like Dove has a PR agency who's monitoring the blogs, and if they say, trust me, I don't trust them, my own company 100%. So you still have to do your own monitoring a bit. And when you hear, sometimes you'll hear things come in on an email and a phone call, and then go out and do your own blog searches and see what's really being said. So we as an industry should be a little more proactive, but don't kid yourself. When your competitor has a recall, it has a huge halo effect on what you're responsible for too. So you need to be just as prepared on that. And you're right, the bigger the brand, it spreads that much faster.
It's easier to become the poster child of that recall. You know, there was another article surfaced about, baby care products, and of course Johnson's baby care is the one on every website that you can read about it. Was it necessarily their brand that had a big issue? No, but that's what people recognize, and they're like, oh, what are they saying about my baby's shampoo or bath product? And just on the topic of the Google alerts, and similar to what Chris was saying about the emotional effect that it leaves with people, and talking about the fix, is to think about your Google search results. Because while the recall may only last for a certain period of time and then you move on from it, there's a digital footprint that's left out there on Google. So you can offset that by doing some search buys where you actually buy against the negative queries. So if it's your brand and the word recall, what comes up in the search results. And actually, just kind of out of curiosity, before we had our session today, I was wondering, I wonder how much is still out there about peanut butter. So I didn't even put peanut butter and recall in. I just put peanut butter into Google, and the very first entry was talking about peanut butter recall. I mean, how long will that linger out there? When will it show up again on your Google alert to say that there's been another recall? And while you would hope that that your brand is up there and they're going to your site for information, if somebody is wondering, oh, I wonder if that peanut butter recall is still out there. I mean, it's so easy to get onto Google or Yahoo or one of these other search engines and put in a type of food and a recall, and they would get their information there and they see it as credible. That it's important that you keep that in mind as far as the lasting effects of a recall, not just if they're in the store and they feel like, oh, I don't know if I should buy peanut butter today. And I guess it almost parallels the store analogy, like where do you want your product at eye level, right? Eye level, buy level. Well, if somebody is opening a search results page and right eye level comes an article about your product being recalled, that's something that's important for your team to address, to make sure that the appropriate information is out there. There's no rumors or offshoots of that news. That's something really important to also use in your cleanup
Which
process.
is why it's so important to start social media before, because the quickest way to fix a problem with a Google result is to have a social media presence, because social media is going to, by very nature, end up at the very top of search for most queries, because spiders on Google like fresh content, lots of links, and keywords. So if you think like a Google search spider, and you can have people start to put in information on the social web around, you know, fresh content, lots of links, and the right keywords, you can push those results down just by nature of having a very strong social presence. So when you think social media, don't think necessarily just the bad stuff, think search, because as you just did, you typed in, you know, Skippy recall. Thank God you guys had something up there right away. Most people will find a Wikipedia site. Most people will find WebMD when they're doing health researches because they're socially active. Twitter has just changed its algorithm so that it's going to start to show up in search much more often for real key names. So think about that as you are beginning to look at social media. If you want to affect how your brand is going to be after a recall, you can look at using those kinds of tools too to push bad results down. And there are many ways to do that.